We good, Chelsea?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Jan Fisher, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Okay, here's some updates from the first selectman, myself. There was a request to give an update on the Chief Financial Officer search. As we've discussed before and have approved here at the board, Strategic Government Resources, or SGR, is the recruiter that's been hired, led by a gentleman named Jeff Tyne. Jeff and I he interviewed me about what I'm looking for. He's had several stakeholder calls with town of Fairfield employees. He knows what attributes that we're looking for, the type of experience that's most important for the position. They are currently going through their database and identifying people to speak to. I have not yet interviewed anyone from them, although I have interviewed additional person that came through our original search, and hopefully I'll be interviewing people soon. We're really looking forward to getting that position filled. I don't know if Peter Ritchie. Go ahead, Selectwoman Cupton.
Thank you. Excuse me. So I know we approved this back in June at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I'm familiar with SGR because we use them to recruit other directors. I went on their website and it doesn't list Fairfield as an open recruitment on their website. It has us listed as upcoming recruitments, and then when you click on it, the link doesn't work. And this isn't even on our town website for people to apply for. So I'm wondering, like, when we approved this back in June, why isn't SGR have it on their website, like listed as an active recruiting position?
Yeah, I don't know how long they took to do that when you hired them. It has taken them some time to do the fact finding in order to get to the point where they were comfortable doing that. I assume, Peter Ritchie's here, I assume that they will be posting that Fairfield job soon because they've talked to key stakeholders.
Yes, so they have a full-blown sort of media process to include not just their website, but social media and other professional organizations and certain areas of focus that they know that these applicants would probably preside. They just wanted to get very tight on exactly what we're looking for before we went through that process. So to build on what Bill said, it's about a matter of really fine tuning, not just what the job description says, but also kind of what is our environment like, and how do we see this role fitting into the overall organization. So they're just finalizing that literally by tomorrow. I think they're going to be having their final stakeholder discussion, and then from there they'll be able to start posting. So
through you, Bill, to Peter, thank you, Peter. But I mean, this has been 8 months, and how is it that we don't know what's required for a CFO position? I mean, I think we already do know. And yeah. I mean, we don't even have it listed on the town website as an active opening for people to click on. And I'm just confused. This is such an important role.
Well, as you know, fair question. As you know, we had it open for a period and received many resumes. I'm thinking 30 or so. And I've done several interviews over a period of time, actually made an offer. That offer was rejected, was about to make another offer. That person withdrew their application. We did reopen the town website for a period and got some more resumes. And really none of them were the type of, they were not really qualified. They were highly qualified individuals with great skills, just not for this job. And I agree, like, we know what we want, but from what I understand, SGR has their process, and this is their process that we're following, and they're dead set on doing it the way they do it. I think I would like it to go faster as well. I would love to have this position filled.
Thank you.
Okay, the next, I'm sorry, Selectwoman Vitale, yes.
Have they given you any rough timeline of how long they foresee this taking? Each step, now that they're wrapping up the interviews, when do they foresee this being posted? How long do they have it posted? When will they close the application deadline? Just kind of curious of what the end date is, if you've gotten that far with them.
I'll let Peter handle it. He's handling this process.
So the timeline is malleable based on the circumstances, of course. But generally speaking, this process of getting tighter on the scope in which of the preferred applicant that we're looking for usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks, depending upon certain things. And then once that is locked down, they will then formalize the pre-screening. They then do a sort of next level down of selection process, if you will, kind of semi-finalists, which we then get involved to make sure that they're still on target. And then from there is the finalist, which is its own timeline. Which we're recognizing, if I may just add a couple other points on that. First off is we did all of our combing, if you will, of the local, regional applicants, and Bill just described the path we went through. We expect that we are in fact going to be drawing from a wider geographic area, and that could also complicate things, as one might imagine, just with people are not local, and so there's logistical components relative to that, both for the interview process as well as potentially for placement. So there's some things that might factor in that regard. But then also, actually, to Bill's point, we're following the process of SGR, but we're also working to accelerate where and when practical. So, for example, these stakeholder meetings, they wanted to come here, they wanted to spend time, they wanted to see the area. We're like, that's great. You can do this through Zoom. So, or even just phone calls, right? This isn't something that needs to be in present kind of situation. So, where and when practical, we're actually trying to accelerate or do parallel processing. They really do have a robust process. We've hired 3 people. The town rather has hired 3 people through them, as some of you all are very much aware from past discussions or history. So it's a wonderfully rigorous process, but it also means it has its challenges as far as working through that quickly but effectively.
I would and I appreciate that, having gone through a couple, unfortunately, superintendent searches, national superintendent searches. Appreciate there are a lot of steps, and it does take time, especially if people are potentially traveling here. Just wondering, when the timeline gets tighter, I would just appreciate, that you share that with the Board of Selectmen. For myself, would love to see this role filled before that we begin the next budget cycle. Just, for the finance department and for the first selectman, just to have this role, filled would be ideal. So appreciate the efforts and the update. Thank you.
I would just add that no one wants to see this position filled more than I do. We have so much work. We have so much going on. So many infrastructure projects, changes in the way we're, our systems, things that we should change in our systems that involve finance, changes in the way we track and invest the cash through robust. We are trying to create a robust cash flow projection analysis. All these things, we are just really excited to fill that position to help get those things completed. The next item is the Perry's Mill Pond adjacent properties that we have that we are planning to acquire at the Board of Finance. They made an amendment to the purchase contract, a very good one, which was to make the purchase contingent on removing the oil tank. The oil tank has been removed. Tim Bishop was there, inspected the tank itself. There was no corrosion on the tank. It was intact. The ground around it looked like there had not been any leakage. The soil has been tested, has been sent off for testing, and we are waiting results. And hopefully those results will be negative for contaminants, and that will be it. So hopefully we'll get the results back within the next few days. And if so, we'll complete the acquisition. We can begin the work on the property to prepare it for town use. So we're very excited about that. And those were all unanimous votes on our various boards. And I think the town in general is very excited about that. Christine Vitale had asked if we could give an update on opioid settlement funding. So there are two sources. I'm not sure if everyone is aware that with the big pharmas involved that were implicated in opioid abuse scandals. The settlement involved payment to the state, and Fairfield gets a portion of that. 85% of the funds allotted to Connecticut, 85% are kept by the state for their activities. 15% of that goes to the towns. Our allotment is expected to be about $650,000 but that is over many years. But we have received about $340,000 to date. Very little has been used under the prior administration. A few thousand was used for a forum that was held at Sacred Heart University with first responders. Of the $650,000 that we expect to receive, we received an upfront amount of $121,825 from Janssen upfront. They decided to settle that right up front, and $527,294 then is received in installments over 18 years. We are currently in the process of determining how we set up a committee, even though this money can be spent at the discretion of the first select person, but I feel more comfortable setting up a committee where we make joint determinations on how this money should be spent. There are very strict rules around, well, I shouldn't say very, there are rules around how this money should be spent. There's certain latitude within those rules they've been published. There has to be evidence-based prevention strategies, and so we are going to be asking a team of people to submit their ideas, and then we will determine how to use those funds, and we'll make that all public. so far we've spent very little. So we're going to have some potential, hopefully some potential projects that will have an impact. My only request of the committee would be, I'd like to do things that have long-lasting impact, not sort of one-off projects, something that could structurally change the way we approach this, that could potentially outlast the funding, something that we may want to keep going after that. Any questions about that? Yeah, Selectwoman Vitale.
First, I want to thank you for just publicly reporting out on this. I know I've been a little bit of a nag about it. As I shared with the board, I am now one of the co-chairs of the Fairfield Cares, which is our local prevention council here in Fairfield. Fairfield Cares is obviously, being that prevention is a large focus, willing to be a partner. The coalition has Julie DeMarco, we have Jessica from the police department, members of the school district, many local organizations who are already doing this work. So please know that we would like to be a partner and a resource to you, Mr. First Selectman, and just moving this forward. I know there's a lot of information on the state website for members of the public that would like to learn more and just find out what other towns are doing. I think it's unfortunate in some respects that, this money is available just due to the abuse of Big Pharma, but I think there's a real opportunity for us as a town to help with prevention, treatment, and looking for sustainable options to really help our community. A lot of people are struggling. People are losing their life every day due to opioid addiction. So I'm looking forward to you getting a team together and us as a community and getting feedback from the public to expend these funds. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, it's probably important to note that Fairfield Cares has new leadership. I think he's started. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you were talking.
Oh yeah. Do you want to mention?
You were talking to somebody in the room.
Oh no, Christina. Do you want to mention the new leadership of Fairfield Cares?
Yes, thank you. There's the new program director, Michael Tingley. He started the beginning of the year. Sorry, not the year. Beginning of the month. I'm already thinking about school year. We're looking forward to having a kickoff event at our September meeting, just to introduce him to the public. He comes from rich history and prevention work, as well as healthcare, marketing, communications. So I think that he'll be a real asset to our community. He's very anxious to get to work, especially with our students up and running, and look forward to sharing more about the work that we'll be doing this upcoming school year. Because right now our focus is obviously on prevention for our high schoolers, our middle schoolers, and hoping to build the coalition with our two colleges as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. The next item is the Reading Road Demonstration Roundabout Project. Our engineering team worked together with DPW to set up and the police, I can't forget, with the traffic police team, set up a roundabout on Reading Road and Dunham Road, with cones and painted lines. And we sent out something. We realized after that day, I think that evening, that not everyone knows what a demonstration project is, because I got a couple emails from people saying, well, I don't know if cones are going to work, or painting lines, maybe that's not enough. Maybe you should have brick and mortar. And I realized that not everyone's used to this concept. If you lived in many other states, you would see these all the time. Connecticut's a little bit further behind. Certainly Fairfield doesn't do a lot of these, but we are going to start doing more and more demonstration projects to see if a concept works before investing money in brick and mortar to make things like roundabouts or raised crosswalks and things like that. So this one, really, from where I sit and from where most of the feedback that I got, is coming from. This was very, very successful in that it really slowed people down, which was the point. This is not a highly congested area. It is an area where people get complacent on straightaways. They start driving distracted, and there have been a couple deaths there over the last few years, and we're looking to slow people down. Now, the feedback most of the feedback that I got from people not on that street was, when can I get something like this on my street? So we are now looking at a more informed town as we roll out some of the communications on these things. And we expect to get more and more requests. We have many, many requests, and we are in the process of sort of looking at how we filter these requests and how we prioritize them, and how do we create a structure where we can proactively go out, find these areas of high concern, and actually try to alleviate some of the concerns before they are actually reported to us. So we're looking at traffic calming measures all over town, and we'll be starting hopefully within the next few months a project through a grant to evaluate street safety in Fairfield.
Can I just?
Yes.
So I'm assuming the people that reached out to me, probably the same ones that reached out to you, because we did a lot of this under my administration, but we always notified the neighbors when it was happening. Like when we did the test on Villa Avenue, we let people know, and in other areas of town, and the police were very involved. They were there. But there was a lot of people in that neighborhood. And actually, the two families who lost their loved ones weren't even aware that this test case was happening. So I just would encourage the administration to make sure that, and I know there's a list because I worked with those people very actively after Megan Ravis passed away, was killed on that road, that we worked with those people. We kept them, engaged, and they understood what was happening. So I think anytime we're doing anything like this, very important to communicate with the neighborhood before it happens. And obviously the police should be super involved in any traffic calming that we're doing. They are the experts in traffic safety. So I would encourage to make sure that the police are involved.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, next item number 4, resignation, Employees Retirement Board. Kevin Sojin, a Republican, 268 Sherwood Farm Road, term 11/20 to 11/25. He resigned on July 2nd, 2024. Kevin actually would have liked to have resigned some time ago, but stayed on to help out because he was asked to by the chair, and he's just a really great guy and really appreciate that he did that. So thank you, Kevin. Moving on to item number 5, first selectman appointment, and this is for information only. This requires the RTM approval. Employees Retirement Board, Caroline R. Crissa, Democrat, 521 Riverside Drive, term 11/20 to 11/25, to fill a vacancy left by Kevin A. Sojin, Republican. And she could not attend due to a work commitment, but her appointment came out of a survey process that the chair of the pension board did with a matrix for all the board members, asking us, including myself, what our background is, what our degrees are, what our strengths and weaknesses are, and they put that together and came to a definitive conclusion that we were really lacking in the area of compliance. That was something that several members of the board wanted to beef up. So we went out looking for, asking for people with compliance experience in the investment world. So Caroline Crissa's background is perfect. I think everyone is looking forward to having her on the board if she's approved by the RTM.
Bill, may I? I'm sorry to interrupt. May I just?
Oh, Carolyn, I didn't know you were here. Hi.
Can I just add a thought to that? So apart from the fact that we did this, we spent, several weeks, 8 weeks or so on this board survey. Caroline, we're going to put her right to work should she be appointed. One of the aspects of the JRIB is we do rely greatly on outside counsel, and it will be very helpful to have her skill set. Not only is she highly qualified, but she brings really great pension funds legal experience, alternative investments legal experience, and she also had spent time at an SEC registered commodity trading firm. And so she'll be able to help steer us to the right type of counsel, and importantly, maybe help us save some dollars along the way, because there might be some things that we can handle internally just simply because she has a better sense of what can be done. And so she's highly qualified, and I can't wait to get her going.
Thanks.
Could I just publicly thank Kevin for his service and appreciate his time and dedication to our community. And I read that he, obviously he's getting some tune-ups with his body. So I kind of know how that feels, because I think I'm going to be tuning up soon for similar situations. So I just want to thank Kevin. He's a wonderful person, and I just want to thank him publicly for his service.
Brenda, it's even double on that, because he wanted to step down in January, and he was kind enough to stay with us through the whole changeover of the OCIO. And he came to every one of the meetings, and we do all owe him a debt of gratitude. So yeah, thank you for saying that. He really was a great trooper.
That's nice.
That's awesome. Thank you. Item number 6, town librarian. We have Jan Fisher here today. Scott's on vacation. To hear, consider, and act on an agreement between the Fairfield Public Library and Cornell Lab of Ornithology to provide a database for biologists and birders to explore comprehensive life history information on birds. This approval includes the authorization to enter into renewals on similar terms and conditions. And B, to hear, consider, and act on an agreement between the Fairfield Public Library and Zubeen to provide an online tool for logging, reading, challenge books and activities. This approval includes the authorization to enter into renewals on similar terms and conditions. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. Jen.
I just want to say that there is an error on the sheet that, I don't know if the sheet goes around to everyone.
Oh, no. The
Prices, the costs of the items, because the cost is wrong for the Zubeen feed stack.
What is the cost? What is the cost?
It says $47.90, but it's actually $1622.25.
16,000?
No, $1,622.
Oh, okay. This is all right. This is one of those. Okay.
That's the product that we use to track all of our reading challenges. All through the year, people are allowed to be in more than one challenge at a time. It distributes prizes, and I don't know if you've seen the lawn signs around town, but the kids who get those from the summer reading program are just so proud and ecstatic about that. And this is the way that we track that. This is very simple. We do the summer reading program, the winter reading program, and the year-long adult reading challenge.
That's awesome.
Through you,
yes,
Bill, can you ask Jan, is that, she's talking about the item B?
Yes.
Is item A a different cost? The bird?
Birds of the World is a database that we have in our.
I think Selectwoman Kupchak wanted to make sure that that cost was.
Oh, that one's correct. $799 per year.
So I would just say,
Fairfield residents.
I mean, I think, listen, I love both of these programs. I think they're lovely, but Jan, you're not aware, but I have shared in the past with the board that these are administrative items that typically weren't ever brought before the board in the past, and I'm just gonna abstain on it, but please don't take that personally. I think they're both lovely programs, and I'm actually a birder myself, so just wanted to say that.
Jen, can you get us the corrected? I mean, that was created by your, or is that created by
Yeah, we
purchase?
created it with the library.
Yeah, if you could send us the corrected version, and we'll update the backup. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Christine?
Ms. Kupchak, have you used this database? Being that you're a
No,
birder?
but I might do that. I might ping you, Jan, and ask you how to do it.
Oh, try it. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
I'm curious now too. So I appreciate. I
One of the
always
nice
learn
things
something
about-
new about, you know, when we get these before us, about all the resources at the library, and this one
Yeah.
is definitely interesting, especially this time of year when there's so many birds on our shorelines and around. So I encourage the public to check it out. And even if you're not a birder, I mean, you might become one after checking out this database. So I will be
Sure.
supporting this. Thank you.
We love the publicity for our database.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's amazing.
The Audubon's
that's one of-
actually a very good resource too. That's what I got me started many years ago in birding.
So I understand you'll be abstaining, Ms. Kupchak, but any comments from the board? From any other comments from the board? Seeing none from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? So the item passes. Thank you. And we'll incorporate the corrected backup. John Bodie, Water Pollution Control Authority Superintendent, to hear, consider, and act on approving an agreement between the Town of Fairfield Water Pollution Control Authority and BG Mechanical, Inc. for maintenance services for the building environmental mechanical systems for the water pollution control facility for the period of August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2026. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Bodie.
Okay, that was very eloquently stated, but this is basically two boilers that heat our digester at the treatment plant. They're not solely designed for building heat. They are fed by natural gas and methane gas, which is produced in the digester. Therefore, there are a lot of valves and safety switches that need to be maintained. They installed these boilers in 2000. They've been maintaining them since then. That's why we have this maintenance agreement, and we would like to keep it going.
Thank you. Any questions?
How much is this? It's not listed, and I don't know if I can't find it.
First year is $1,406. The second year is $1,448.
Okay. So again, I just, for the public's edification, this is to me an administrative issue, and it's not, it doesn't rise to the, so I'm going to abstain because I think this is something that could be handled within the administration.
Any questions, Ms. Vitale?
No.
Any comments from the public? Back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Abstentions?
Same.
Item passes. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The next item is Human Resources Director Kathleen Sims. Oh, Peter Ritchie is here, and David Becker is here. Here, consider and act upon an agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Payroll LLC for payroll and human capital management services. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Ritchie.
Great, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to review this with you. You've got a lot of materials that came through in support of the topic I'm going to touch upon, which is again relative to opportunity to modify how we go about our human capital management of our systems and along those lines, especially in the payroll space. So if I can turn your attention in the slide deck to slide number 2. Kathleen, did you want to?
See.
There you go. Turn your attention to slide number 2. So I wanted to describe sort of the path and how did we get to where we are today. As many of you know, since I arrived about 2 years ago, an initial goal was passed to me to focus on a time and attendance system, implementing a time and attendance system. And since that evaluation process began, we received some additional insight and perspective, some of it to include an audit subcommittee, Board of Finance audit subcommittee report that talked about payroll process within the town. And we've since revised the goal, focusing on the systems to be a little bit more broader and recognizing the historical issues that were, again, represented, some of them within that process report, as well as recognizing that many of the conversations that have occurred since I've been here, Kathleen's been here, even from prior HR director and comments made about payroll challenges. In terms of the current payroll process challenges, let me sort of just high level touch upon those. It's a low tech, high touch process, extremely manual. Really hasn't been able to accommodate things along the lines of town departmental needs for flexible scheduling, tracking of those, reporting on that. Limited enforcement and accountability. So much of it was email and not necessarily providing the right exposure, approvals, and optics to management. And limited reporting and controls. And again, this is really about trying to put in just good best practices in place, pardon me, so that we have the ability to not just be accurate, but also compliant, really. It's both aspects of it. In terms of the evaluation process, we tried to be very thorough and engage many different areas across the town departments that we recognize had significant needs. Department of Public Works, they have an extremely manual time and attendance program in place, and they have to recognize flexible scheduling for weather and so forth. Parks and Rec, significant hiring, as we all know, for seasonal, short term, in different places, locations around, geographically scattered around town. The library, and was part of our review committee as well, because they have their own needs relative to flexible scheduling with part-timers, et cetera. HR, finance was involved, purchasing was involved, in IT from the department. We also engaged with town council where, excuse me, long time. In addition, we went through a process across this review with 6 different recognized industry leaders in this payroll space. Trust me, I know, and I'm sure others can comment, there's plenty of other providers that are out there, but we really wanted to go to ones that we felt best aligned to our goals. Paylocity was met back in May of 23, ADP in December of 23. Tyler, otherwise known as Munis, in February. Even though that's part of our system today, we wanted to give them an opportunity to explain some things that we felt where we had shortcomings or opportunities or gaps, and what could they do to help us with that. UKG, which is also known as Kronos, Paycom, of course, and NeoGov, which is more recently in the June timeframe. So we tried to broaden our review process to ensure that we're recognizing things across those multiple organizations and wanted to find the best practical application. Resulting recommendation is, given what we've learned through all of these payroll evaluations, as well as the review committees, we move forward with not just the time and attendance, but the broader human resources management payroll process with data. What's the impact? It provides us all in one platform. We don't have systems constantly having to be reconfigured or technologically modified to be able to talk to other systems, which we know can create its own challenges. It'll be a program that's managed both, or really the benefit is both HR and finance. It's an outsourced solution that'll adopt much more modernization, data accuracy, digitized storage of confidential documents, things of that nature. It's expected it'll greatly reduce processing time and will result in better support for employees and achievement of town administration human capital related goals. In terms of the
Peter, should we get you something to drink?
I have water sitting about 100 feet away, but it should be okay. Do you have
Thanks.
I'll try to continue, but my apologies. Obviously the benefits and the rationale. We're implementing payroll processing best practices, simplified self-service. The user interface is much more commonsensical than we have today. And it's a single source for systemic input. Again, we don't want to have multiple systems trying to talk to each other. That is always fraught with challenges downstream, or things change, or candidly could also create some cybersecurity challenges in that. Help us decrease errors, decrease processing time, increase our productivity both in HR and finance, increase reporting and compliance capabilities, be able to be better holding people accountable, both the employee and the management levels. Again, more of a consistent and actually structured or formalized approval workflow process. Further, I just want to offer, which I didn't put into the deck, thank you, is that we conducted 2 references provided by Paycom, of course, but the town of Southbury, Connecticut, which has an equivalent number of residents. I spoke to their payroll manager at length about how their implementation went in their current state environment, and she was very, very strong in support. Their CFO, we know, is very strong in support of Paycom. We spoke with him at length as well. The city of Doral, Florida, which of course is not in the state of Connecticut, but they have 640 employees. They hire about 200 seasonals. This is all very same and similar to how the way in which we operate as a town. They also used Kronos and ADP, found them not to be satisfactory, so they made the move again about 2 years ago to Paycom. And they use NeoGov, which many might know is our applicant tracking system today. And NeoGov integrates into the Paycom system well, so there's benefits that we'll realize there. There are other Connecticut towns that they currently provide services to, which is Glastonbury and Waterford, which are approximately the same or actually a little bit larger than us. And I meant to mention the city of Doral, Florida has 79,000 residents, so it's a much bigger city, but they felt strong about Paycom. So, I can take you to slide 4, just briefly. Realizing there's a lot of detail here, but the bottom line is, what is Paycom what is their focus? What are they gonna solve for the town? As far as the key modules, it's employee onboarding, which HR will still have a very strong responsibility for, but the interface will actually become Paycom's as far as the processing side. Time and attendance, benefits and family medical leave act, administration, HRIS, custom reporting, payroll, and tax filing. You see a slide on slide 4 that has a lot of green dots. That's what Paycom's going to cover, and if you really quickly run the math, it's actually about 94% of what we're currently doing within the town in this space will be covered. Quite broad, quite extensive. In our opinion, very beneficial. Slide 5, processing efficiency. We just want to drill into that a little bit more. Based on everything we've seen and evaluating our own department, we see that probably 30% less of our HR team will be spent on processing payroll. We'll minimize the data inaccuracies that unfortunately become a public discussion at times and problematic, and we want to always minimize those where and when practical. Employees will be able to utilize smartphones or time clocks in many cases. Also our computers to actually log in and log out where necessary for their time. It affords us geo-fencing, which is a term some may not be aware of, which is the concept of we can say where and when where an employee can actually sign in or not. So we want somebody flying to Florida and then signing in and saying they're working when in fact they're not. So this allows us to control that and provide that level of inspection as well. Electronic time off requests for various sick or vacation times can all be done through these apps and so on. So there's a number of efficiency operations or opportunities in our department. And the green boxes at the bottom of slide 5 try to quantify what those savings opportunities are. So if we talk about hiring and onboarding, we perceive to be about $11,900 in savings. For the benefits enrollment administration, about $5,900 on an annualized basis. And then manager time card approvals and whatnot. This is probably the biggest savings opportunity, which is $41,925. All in, if you put that together, we're looking at all in, the number was about $41,000 was added to other savings opportunities or current spending expectations, like Board of Finance appropriation we already had for $75,000. We were going to do a Munis deep dive. We don't need to do that. That was about $10,000. And then just some other ongoing spend within Munis over time, we may be able to minimize that, which is about $17,000 currently. So all in, there's about $116,000. In terms of pricing, take that question. There is a one-time implementation fee of $20,000. The time frame for implementation is about 8 to 12 weeks, is what Payroll has stated. And then the projected annualized cost is $169,166. However, just to clarify, that number is going to fluctuate based on the number of paychecks, the number of employees. So we will actually get charged on a per head basis versus just being flat, retained or single fee throughout each single paycheck payroll process. And that's really helpful because we know we hire about 375 seasonals during the summer, and then they are no longer there effective October 1st. We wouldn't want to have to be paying for the significant increase if we don't have to. So it helps us be flexible. The last, I'll say, main slide I was just going to highlight was slide 6, which is a quick comparison of what was articulated or findings that came through the Board of Finance Audit Subcommittee payroll process report. You'll see on the left-hand side some of the things that were identified in that process report that were opportunities to evaluate or minimize or fix. We show on the right-hand side how Paycom can actually solve them. So we feel very strongly about this. And we ask for your approval.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you for including me in the Paycom presentation. They were really well prepared, really impressively well prepared. I just want to mention quickly there was a payroll process review that was done by PKF O'Connor. That's in the backup. That you have provided to Paycom, right?
After that,
right.
The Finance Subcommittee meeting.
So as they implement, assuming we approve this today, as we implement Paycom, they will be cognizant of where the internal control process findings, make sure that those are appropriately accounted for in the implementation.
Yeah, I mean, we're primarily going to be focusing in those areas, not just the process, but those areas as well. We may, in fact, accelerate, if I may, it may help us accelerate the timeline to get to some of those things. Under Munis, the complexity of that system, its programming, might take much longer to try and remedy some of those findings. So this will help accelerate the
And in your numbers, like when 30% less will this impact the headcount for related to payroll in your office? I don't know, Kathleen, if you want to. How many you had some people leave. You've got some open positions. Will this impact the people that you will need to address payroll?
Our estimation will have part-time personnel to do putting and that type of that. We won't need a full person to do that task. Right now it's a full-time position because of the manual and the complexity. And also the savings in terms of the time. For instance, Peter right now basically acting as a manager or supervisor instead of doing a lot of the other functions. That part too will also help because as you know, we've got risk management and the kind of things that we also want to do in HR, like other things. So the other thing, Peter, onboarding process will be more seamless.
Right now, this was written in that report that you were just referencing. There's 30 different pieces of paper that we deliver to new hires that then have to come back and be dealt with and rolled out. And in some cases, in many cases, then we manually go in and enter it into a system. That is fraught with challenges, both wasteful of time and as well as data inaccuracies. So it'll really help streamline that process. It'll accountability at the employee, the new hires level, to be able to provide us that data, and it'll go straight into Paycom. So it'll be much more efficient that way.
And the number one thing that we get issues with, and we've had grievances, the number one has been payroll issues. We don't want that problem because that's not a good problem to have. You're exposed to a town of liability. And again, you're going to have a lot of mistakes when you have this manual system. And even if we kept Munis, we'd have to start all over again. It's just to us, it just seemed it makes sense to start fresh with something that is intuitive and put time dependence in the payroll function together. I would also want to add too, we also talked to Mike Ormany, who's retired there now. He was the
Excuse me, Bill, for a moment. It's hard to hear. I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what?
Like,
I'm talking into
there's some
the.
kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, it might make, should you just sit
Here.
Have you not heard any of
I
it?
heard some, but I don't know if it's from that town of Fairfield.
I think it's because
Oh, maybe. Okay.
if you want, you could come sit next to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That better? Is that better?
Yeah, just as the air sound.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I was just saying that, I don't know how much, but I did check with New Haven, with Mike Ormany, who at that time was the director of finance and the controller. And he had thought of going to the Munis for time and attendance, and we had the same thing, and they decided not to because they thought it was not a good system and not a good investment. Sorry.
One thing that, I mean, in terms of the costs that you were laying out, I think there's some other costs and risk. For example, we found like a IRS penalty related to W-2 holdings, and avoiding those issues is also very, very important. So it's not, I don't know if you know anything about that, but I think this was,
We had for an example, there was a lack of a FICA withholding that went on too long. And it created an issue not only with the IRS, but also with the union. It was a nurses contract. And it was the type of thing that would happen. Someone goes from part-time to full-time. Our part-timers don't have the Social Security deduction. They have Mid-Atlantic?
Yes,
Mid-Atlantic. I should know.
Mid-America.
Mid-America, sorry. Mid-America as their withholding that they have instead. And so what happened when they went there was a mistake. They didn't put the person into full-time, they didn't take the FICA, which created, that one problem created a lot of problems, a grievance, and potential liability with the IRS. And that's just one example.
But we actually did make a payment to the IRS for a penalty, I believe.
We did, yes.
Yeah. So we expect this will alleviate or get rid of, hopefully, all those types of risks as well.
It should, it will, I shouldn't say it should, it will get rid of that risk.
I'd like to open it up to.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Bill. So obviously I'm very familiar with all these payroll issues. I asked about this, 4 years ago. We were supposed to implement a time and attendance. We were actually given the money for it. Obviously COVID hit 4 months in to the new administration. So that was a big, and then we had a turnover in the HR department at the director, but Kathleen, you've had it for, over 2 years. I mean, listen, I'm very familiar with it. So I still don't understand why we didn't put the time and attendance into action for public works in the library, because that was something we said we could do. And I trusted the HR department to handle that. It should have been already done. It was a simple thing. Those people are standing in line. The library people are passing around a piece of paper. That could have been an easy fix. What I am having trouble with, and I did look through the audit, which didn't really give a whole lot, and nor did it say it recommended outsourcing. It didn't say there was any nefarious things found. I found it very interesting that the audit subcommittee did not have the 2 people who do payroll for the town for many years even talked to or interviewed. So what I'm trying to figure out, because obviously it's a very complicated thing. We were, we sent Ayanna to Munis conference to learn, and they had been training on the new Munis. Our system was old. We were supposed to be upgrading it. Everyone uses Munis. It's a widely used software. I know Ayanna has left, 2 people have now left. Quite a few people have left town service recently, but right now, so explain, either Kathleen, can you explain the department structure now? And what, if any, jobs are going to be eliminated because of this outsourcing? And then what are the updated job descriptions for positions impacted by the outsourcing? So are we going to be eliminating payroll people in our finance department for this, or how is this going to work? I'm trying to understand.
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, right now, we're not looking at elimination of jobs, because we right now need to get to the transition. We probably can repurpose or get other functions, plenty to do. Right now, though, I'm telling from my perspective right now, when we will not need a full-time payroll transaction person when we get Paycom up and going, because we won't have the ongoing problems and with the manual system. And I will say this, that it wasn't an easy thing to put a time and attendance. I did get that when I was hired, and Jim Hazelkamp was trying to do that as well, to put something in, because it's not so easy, we learned, to put a time and attendance and have it match seamlessly with Munis. And that was one of the issues. And we started this when you were still in the first slide, when we tried that process. So it wasn't like we delayed it or didn't want it, but we also wanted to make sure that Peter did. Wanted to get the stakeholders involved that have to do that administration of public works, the library, parks, and also just in general, supervisors' frustration and employees and not being able to see what kind of time, or do self-service, change their direct deposit, just everyday things that makes things much more stressful and harder and time consuming. So when the Munis system, and again, Peter has been living it much more as daily, is frustrating. Anyone who sits in that seat that Ayanna had really hates their job, because they're responsible all day long for doing manual, and you're going to make mistakes.
the system itself, sometimes Munis couldn't even explain to us why there are these mistakes. And it became to the point,
are we keeping Munis, and is Munis gonna be talking to Paycom? Like how is
no,
it?
Munis we're keeping Munis for other things like the GL and
Accounting,
modules.
accounting, right, but as far as the payroll, they will take that over. Peter, you can speak to how Munis is gonna interact with,
Just one
that's
second.
right.
So
Right.
Munis charges for the module, right? We will be able to
Right.
drop that module from.
We believe we'll be able to. That's about $35,000 or $40,000 actually that we currently the HR piece itself. Part of that is, we anticipate some savings there. I'm hesitant because I don't want to say, well, we can cut it forward with them and realize we've lost something. So we definitely see an opportunity there that we're going to test.
So Peter,
We are going to retain.
who in finance did you consult with on all of this?
Sure. So the review panel, actually, Caitlin, Jude, and Kiva from finance have been part of it. David Becker has also been involved very actively, in some cases actually in the presentation. But Caitlin, Jude, and Kiva were always invited. Some permutation or representation varied based on the different vendors. I can say, I believe it was Jude and Kiva did not get to participate in the initial ACOM presentation. So we realized that was a gap. And so actually scheduled for this coming Monday morning at 10 a.m., at least Jude has confirmed. I can't recall if Kiva did, but based on the email exchange, Jude, Paycom, and I will be getting together to go through the modules and answer any questions they have. This is predominantly on the HR processing side, with some impact on the downstream into payroll department or team upstairs. That's kind of how we've been approaching it. It's really about HR and then candidly the clients, as I might refer to them in the departments, because they're the most significantly impacted as far as time and attendance. And so that's how we've been approaching it. But they've always been invited, just based on vacations or other commitments I expect. It happens.
How, Peter, I'm sorry, it was loud before, I couldn't hear you, but how many towns are using this system?
They actually have 37,000 clients across the US. There are 6,000 employees.
In Connecticut, how many towns?
Within Connecticut, they gave us Southbury, Waterford, and Glastonbury.
So 3 towns out of 169.
Well, those are the 3 that they offered up. Yes, that's all that I have at this point. I didn't ask for the full list.
Okay. So I have to say, listen, I'm very aware, you know, how complicated all of this is. I sat in hundreds of hours of meetings with, you know that, Peter, with you and finance and everybody else talking about payroll and the problems and this and constant problems. And how hard it was going to be to get our time and attendance even up. And now you're telling us we're going to have this new system going in 8 to 10 weeks. I have to tell you, I don't believe it. But I do not feel comfortable approving a contract without having longtime people who have done payroll in our town, Kiva and Jude, being first, have a presentation from them and have real input, because they're the ones who've been doing it for over 20 years. And I think it's vitally important. I don't know why they weren't included in the audit meetings, why their input wasn't.
They were included.
They were.
They were included.
I actually flipped on and took a look at that meeting, that audit. I didn't see them at the meeting. I didn't see them talking in the meeting. And I just feel like, you know, considering we don't have the CFO that was working in our town for 4 years, and the only constant that we do have in finance is Caitlin, Kiva, and Jude. So I would prefer to hold and like to have them come back and listen to their point of view, because they're the ones doing it every day. And I just feel like this is just, I think we should take more time, and I think the board should have the opportunity to hear from longtime finance people who've done payroll for all these years, to hear what they think about this before we make a decision to do it. I mean, I always try to listen to people who have expertise and experts in their field, and those women are. I would like to hear from them and how they feel about it.
Yeah, I duly noted. I mean, that is.
I just want to clarify though that my understanding is that the auditor that was hired to do the report did speak to everyone in finance and in HR who had a part in the process. But I also would want to go back is that the bulk of what we're changing here belongs in HR, human resources. That's what I want to stress. And there's been there's not always people who want that change to make it, but it's very important because the risk of liability right now is huge if we don't do something. So, and I don't think Munis is the answer. We've really read it very long and hard, vetted it very thoughtfully with a lot of hours and time. And so that's my.
How many years have you?
No, I agree with you.
That's been 2 years. I'm here 2 years and a month now.
Right, so we still have the money for this, it was kept getting rolled over, so we do have money in the budget from when we approved this, I don't know how long ago now, for the time and attendance, I believe it was $100,000 or more, so we need to take that into consideration. I think we need an update on where's that money, and can we put it toward this? And frankly, I think we need a more thorough, because Kathleen, to your point, I read this whole audit report, and nowhere in this audit report does it say outsource payroll. Nowhere.
May I speak? Is it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So that was not the charge. I think specifically was the auditor, the reviewer, Joe Centofanti was not charged with coming up with a recommendation. He was only charged with doing the review.
There's a ton of recommendations. They identify issues.
With
recommendation. There's like a lot of recommendations.
Let me finish, please. So he was charged with making recommendations about the current existing process. He was not charged with making a recommendation as to what the town should do, whether we should outsource or anything else. So I mean, what he did was very, very important for outsourcing, but we did not ask him. The charge from the Board of Finance was not for him to tell us what he thought we should do, other than to how we could fix the current process.
Yeah, but it makes sense, Bill, though. You know, I mean, I've worked with them for a long time. It would make sense. I mean, they identified all this stuff. Nothing really like hair on fire, but, you know, issues and such. But they made a multitude of recommendations. And I think that if they truly thought, based on their deep dive and thorough review, that we should outsource, it would be somewhere in here. I mean, they don't have to be charged to give a recommendation, right? They just say, hey, you know, after everything we looked at, we think that Munis is not great at this, and you guys should outsource your payroll function. And they didn't do that.
Ms. Vitale raised her hand. Is it okay if she jumps?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Christine Vitale, sorry.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Centofanti was not asked to recommend whether or not we should outsource. Looking through this audit report, I trust our human resources director and staff to really look at the audit report, see a way that we can improve on that. And having sat through many town meetings from both Mr. Gerber and from Eunice Kupchik about modernizing our town government and finding efficiencies and maximizing our human capital, this seems like the direction that we should be going in for a town our size with the number of employees we have. I'm actually surprised about God bless these women that are doing this work manually. I use ADP in my job, my part-time job, and I commend them, and I don't think this is any way a reflection of, you know, it's just a way of streamlining procedures I've heard from a lot of people with just errors in payroll over the years, a way of potentially correcting that and using their talents to meet some of the many other needs that we know exist in human resources. So I don't know why we wouldn't be embracing this, both for the potential cost savings, the benefit to our employees, making the jobs of our department heads and our human resources department easier, and providing a better product. And in terms of our staff, we could use their talents in other ways, which I think is a benefit. And hopefully, you mentioned turnover in jobs. I think very often we see turnover when there's not an opportunity to be challenged and have your talents maximized and an opportunity for growth. So by automating some of these processes, it opens up opportunities for our staff. It sounds like there's some open positions at HR. Maybe we don't fill them. I don't know. I mean, that I will leave up to the administration, but it sounds like there's a potential cost savings there. And just thinking back to some of our budget discussions, I mean, I know that you did not approve the last budget because you wanted to see savings, and here's an opportunity to do so. So I thank point, and I'm curious of why Paycom over ADP. What was the difference between those two programs that made Paycom more attractive to the town, or where was ADP's weaknesses? You mentioned some other towns, moved away from ADP towards Paycom. What was the difference there?
It was, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The predominant, I think it's.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that should work.
The predominant theme was the user interface is more commonly recognized or utilized today. So there's an intuitiveness to how we all use our cell phones, right? There's certain constructs and formatting that we're all sort of used to, and the logic, I'll call it. And I'm not a technologist, but I'm just kind of trying to translate what my experience has been and what I've heard over time. I can say personally, Munis does not have a strong user interface at all, and many others might agree with that. Some may not, but usually most people would. ADP similarly is not quite as user-friendly, and any element of lack of user friendliness creates the opportunity for inaccuracies. And we're trying to really solve two goals, many more probably, but we want accurate data because this is our payroll. This is roughly 70% of all operating costs on average, are related to payroll. This is huge numbers. We have $58 million in payroll. There's a slide, actually, second to last one in the deck. I don't remember the number. I think it's 12. Paycom has said, look, generally, if you have like 0.5% error rate with these kinds of manual systems, for us, that translates to, I don't want to go by memory, but it's a big number. It's like $293,000. So if we have the capability to bring any of that down, to have payroll be much tighter and more accurate, and who doesn't expect payroll to operate at 100% accuracy? So that's really what we really have recognized is the user interface, all the way back to your original question. It's that user interface that Paycom has. It's very common now for how we have all the other apps that we have. And literally, the majority of the towns are using cell phones for people to log in and log out because that's what people are most familiar with. Not all of us generationally are always as comfortable, but it's a common platform. So I think that's the biggest strength of the way in which it's configured. Hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you. I agree. And I would just
finish
say,
up.
Christine,
Can I just
the manual, I just want to just clarify something. You said you think people put things in manually. They don't. They punch in and Munis calculates it. So it's not like everybody's calculating everybody's single paycheck every single week. That's not happening.
Well, and that's wasn't, but I mean, we're talking about tracking through emails, and it just seemed that there was just some manual work, and wherever there's that type of communication, it just naturally the margin of error is there, and looking to just decrease liability and really free up our employees' time to be doing other things, given the many needs that we have in the town right now. How long do you think that the training would be for those people that are going to be now working on Paycom? And how many?
I'm sorry, do you mean like our side, the administration side, or do you mean the employees themselves? I apologize.
Everyone.
Everyone, I think
right?
everyone.
Christine, you're breaking up every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll offer this.
You are
Breaking up.
Okay. The simple answer, I guess, would be Paycom comes in and does the training. So we don't need to do the training. It'll be a strong push across the town, all the employees, to give them that capability. And then what actually happens, and this was very powerful, is that Paycom has analytics that monitors where changes or anomalies are coming through the system, or gaps where people are not really utilizing the application the way it's supposed to. And they proactively reach out to us and say, hey, we want to come into the garage and do DPW garage and do some more training. So that's the exact timing of it. It's always going to be organizationally dependent on who's available and when we can pull people together, but not pull them off of their jobs for too long. But I'm guessing it's around 2 to 3 weeks. It's sort of a rollout. If that helps.
Yeah, and I think that the ongoing, the nice part of the service includes ongoing training for no extra cost. So whatever we need, they're available on site as well, which is something that we really, that's something that Munis does not provide free, and it's not, frankly, they're not very customer service friendly.
Yeah. And really on the manual side, if you, John Cattell were here, I'd love for him to maybe make a statement if he'd be comfortable about it, but they literally have, 1950s, I guess, time cards into a time clock, stamp it, put it in one side, at the end of the day, reverse. Then he and his team start to go through a reconciliation process that he said takes upwards of 4 to 5 to 6 hours to be able to reconcile all that. That's a huge problem for him from a efficiency standpoint. And look, it's fraught with errors again, because they're literally typing into emails or spreadsheets to be able to communicate that on to the payroll team. So it's those kinds of areas as well where we see, and Anthony Calabrese as well, the head of the director for Parks and Rec, has reinforced his seasonals. The amount of work they have to spend to pull it together on timesheets and then have it processed is enormous. So I just want to offer those perspectives. It's not just the payroll team sitting in finance, or this is even HR. It's really even the end users, if you will, out in the field. And I know I heard, well, why not just do the time and attendance? But as reinforced earlier, having a different system talk to Munis, or any systems having to transmit data between each other, can create problems or challenges in and of itself. It's a gap or a liability or a risk. Having Paycom do it all soup to nuts, it just makes it much more seamless, more efficient, and less error prone, if I can offer that.
Peter, can you also have?
Peter, I agree with you, and I know this very well. I know this. Right? And I think, I'm not saying that I don't think it'll be helpful or good. And I'm sure it will be, right? However, one question we didn't get answered was, how much is this contract for?
Yeah, you did 169.
Yeah.
169. And listen, I would assume we would be using the funds that we've already appropriated for time and attendance.
Well, this includes time and attendance.
Right. The funding that we put in place years ago and was approved by all the boards. I'm assuming that funding would go toward this. But again, this is a mammoth thing. I have always wanted us to get this under control. This is a a big problem for our community, for our town government, for its operations. However, I'm going to have to say it again. I do not feel comfortable voting in favor of a contract without the people who will be doing this in finance. They should have been here for this presentation. They should have been here for us to ask questions of them. And anything else, it's like us approving some new system for Park and Rec, or some new thing for DPW, or something for the library, without the actual people who work there. It just doesn't make sense to me. I would respectfully ask us to table this and ask our finance department, the people who actually work there for a long time, be at our next meeting. It gives us enough time to review this a little bit more closely, because let's face it, there was a tremendous amount of information here. I mean, hundreds really of pages of this payroll stuff. And I only read as much as I could possibly read, but I would like to read more about the scope of services. But I honestly feel that it's just not appropriate for the board to vote on this without having the people in the finance who work on this to be here to answer questions from the board. It's not appropriate. I'm respectfully asking if we could just table it till the next meeting, and then that way the payroll department will be able to have their presentation with this Paycom, and then we'll be able to ask questions of them at the next board meeting.
Ms. Kupchak, I think you've definitely made your point loud and clear. Vitaly, do you have any more questions or comments?
Just that, I mean, this, from what I'm hearing, this is a resources decision, and largely they should be driving this. And we have Ms. Simpson here as the HR director presenting. So I feel like we do have the experts on this before us to present. I'm not really sure the benefit of tabling this. We did receive the audit report, the recommendation from the Board of Finance, as well as the backup of some of the areas of liability that the town is currently facing. We've heard it anecdotally. You're sharing just now that this has been an issue for years, and we have the opportunity right now to approve a system that has been vetted, that our HR director and department is recommending to us. And I think that the longer that we wait, we're just exposing the town to liabilities and not doing all we can to be more efficient and more provide service to our employees. Because that's really what it comes down to, I think.
No, I hear you, Christine, but I also think
I'm ready to vote today. I would not.
It's disrespectful not to include the payroll department in this discussion.
But it's.
Yeah, let's be orderly. We're going to. Can I recognize who's speaking now? I mean, we've heard you, Ms. Kupchak. Do you have anything else anything new you'd like to say, or?
No, I agree with having an updated system, 100%. I wouldn't approve anything without all the stakeholders who would have to do it being heard and being able to ask questions of. That's all.
Okay, understood. Ms. Vitaly, anything else?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
I'll be voting in favor of this. I think this has been an ongoing, payroll's been an ongoing problem for years. I recall your predecessor making a statement. I cannot remember which meeting it was. He was asked, what's your biggest problem as human resources director? And his answer was getting payroll out the door. So that really shouldn't ever be the case. Payroll should be it should be a non-event, and it's not here. And I understand there are different ways to approach this. In my view, looking at the review done by Joe Sanafani, of course we can, and some towns, cities will invest a significant amount of money in building a payroll department. But I believe that will be more expensive, just looking at, even a couple of headcount to be experts. Plus, we've had so much turnover, so we would need more senior people. We need to pay them a lot more because we would need them to stay. Their current, we've had issues. We've had a lot of turnover. So in my opinion, this is actually a more efficient and less expensive way to do it. But I am not naive. I don't want to wear rose-colored glasses. Every implementation of a software has hiccups. We're going to need people to pitch in, and from where I sit, I believe that the stakeholders were invited to several of the meetings, and for whatever reason didn't attend at times. So we just need to move forward. That's my view. I don't want to say any more, but I'm excited to do this. So, okay. Any
other question? I'm sorry. Peter, you were mentioning something about a cell phone earlier, that employees would be something to do with their cell phones. So is the town of Fairfield going to be tracking people on their cell phones? You said the geofence, or
yeah, no, the only once somebody tries to log in, that's when they turn on that application, they're saying, I want to log in. So now they're on a town system, if you will. And that will then determine, are they within the quote geofence that's appropriate for them? They're a lifeguard. They can't sign in wherever they might be outside of, I'll make it up, Penfield Beach. So it's only when they turn on the app that it becomes recognized you're inside or outside that boundary.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's other opportunities. Just to clarify, I talked about the cell phone. We're looking at probability of upwards of 3 time clocks in certain high volume areas where people can just go by and quickly scan in that way or scan out. And your computer, an application website right on your computer. So we're creating many different touch points just to help create that flexibility and opportunity for people.
Thank you for the clarification.
Can we go to the public? Do you want to speak as a member of the public? Christine Brown, who is Chief of Staff, is speaking as a member of the public, but you may want to stand there because of the issues with sound.
Yeah, I just wanted to give public comment. As a town employee, I have part-time workers working for me. They have to manually track their hours, and they write them on a piece of paper that I have to then approve, which gets entered into the system. In order for me to get reimbursed for mileage, I had to fill out an I-9 and register as an independent contractor. Register for our payroll system is right out of the 1960s. In a previous job where I was a part-time employee, we didn't use punch cards. We didn't even use any kind of card. You logged in and out on your cell phone, which could not be simpler. This subject may not be familiar with that process, but a lot of us are. It was really easy. I think as an employer, the town of Fairfield has an obligation to be 100% accurate 100% of the time. Payroll is the first system that was automated by mainframe computers in the 1960s. And I think if our residents knew how backwards our payroll system was, they would be appalled. I think this should pass. It's urgently required.
Any other comments from the public? I see none. Do you see any any hands raised? Okay. So back to the board. Anything more, or can we take a vote?
I would just agree with Christine Brown. I'm well aware that this system should have been updated 20 years ago. But again, I just, it's not saying anything, but I know that for many years, the HR directors have told me, the prior and Ms. Simpson told me many times, they are not payroll specialists, and the finance department is, and I would have felt more comfortable having them here today. And that's why I will not be, that I'll be abstaining from this vote, because I feel that they were a crucial and important part of this discussion.
Thank you. Christine Vitale.
I just want to thank Mr. Rishi for the presentation and for the work that was done on this. And thank everyone who has, currently working on payroll. And I hope that by passing this, we make your job a little bit easier. And Ms. Brown, thank you for that public comment. I think that just makes me even more confident in my vote today because, as an employee, we want to make sure that our employees are secure, that their paycheck is correct.
Thank you. Ready to vote?
Thank you. I have nothing. Ready to vote. Ready to vote.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
The item passes. Peter and Kathleen and everyone else who worked on this, all the people that showed up at the meetings and walked through their issues, John Cattell and Anthony Calabrese and everyone else. Thank you all for your hard work on this. This is a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you,
And David Becker. Sorry, David. Next up, item number 9, Purchasing Authority, Adam Tulin, James Ryan. To hear, consider, and act on authorizing the Purchasing Authority to enter into the proposed agreement with Action Construction, Inc. of Danbury, Connecticut, to provide all labor, material, equipment, and all else for the reinforcement of the first floor at Old Town Hall for Town of Fairfield bid number 2024-79, and the Action Construction proposal dated June 5th, 2024 for a total contract amount of $57,300 with additional authority to enter into necessary change orders in an amount not to exceed 10% of the original contract value. Funding for this project is available on account 228-090-110-5700-015 T1 Old Town Hall Structural Improvement. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, James, hi, how are you?
Do you want to start or?
Yeah, sure. Adam Tulin, Purchasing Director. Thank you for being here, James. Yep, so we put out this bid to do some much needed floor work at the Old Town Hall that James can speak much more eloquently about, but I just wanted to mention that we received 5 bids, 4 of which were, pretty competitive. So sort of along the lines of what First Selectman Gerber has been kind of trying to hone in on over some of our recent bids. We feel good about the responses we got on this one. A scope review was held with the low bidder. Everyone seems to be on the same page. And we've prepared a sort of simple contractor contract for the work that Attorney Pierce has reviewed. So we're just here to get this approved by the board.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, just a little summary about the project. It's not very exciting or attractive. It's basement structural improvements, some rotted beams, lolly columns, and to get rid of some temporary lolly columns. I summed it up. We did a scope review with the 3 lowest bidders. They all had a good understanding of the scope of work. And Vantanazzi, who planned and designed the documents, as construction administration with engineering, on call for any questions that come up. It's a very old building. Beams are, like 12 by 12 rough beams that are original to the building. The building is over 230 years old. It's an interesting project, but we're not going to interrupt any work. It's in the basement of the colonial structure, not under any.
Fantastic. Well, for anyone who's been down there, it's been a long time coming. I'm glad you're doing this. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, thank God. Yes, we need it.
How long do
Any?
you think it'll take to complete?
Sorry, Ms. Vitale?
How long do you think it'll take to complete?
They have 14 days on their scope review then.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Just for the
None?
bids, any reason, just
Ms. Vitale?
any insights as to what the variance between the different bids? You know, one was 93, 57, 76, 164.
Electrical. Some of them were had anxiety about the electrical. There's some EX cables that are stapled to the beams that we're replacing. So they carried a high number on to have an electrician there. The scope review of these 3 lower bids, had a better understanding of it, and were not intimidated by that.
Okay. No further questions.
Okay, to the public, any comments? Seeing none, back to the board, ready for a vote. All in favor? Brenda, you have a question? Oh, okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously, thank you. Item number, thanks a lot, James. Item number 10, Purchasing Authority, Adam Toolin and Angeles Papageorge. Here, consider an act on authorizing the purchasing authority to enter into the proposed agreement with Automated Logic Contracting Services, Inc. of Wallingford, Connecticut, to perform proprietary building management system upgrades at Burr Elementary School per town of Fairfield sole source bid waiver dated July 31st, 2024, and the Automated Logic proposal dated July 15th, 2024, for a total proposed contract value of $304,753.29. Funding for this project is available on account 228-090-10-023B1. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Angeles, if you want to sit, would you rather sit? Okay. Oh, Adam, would you like to go first?
Sure, yes. So yeah, I invited, I'm happy Angeles is here because he'll be able to speak more clearly on the project, but just in terms of process, we've approved a bid waiver for this based on past practice because there's proprietary building management system software at play here, pieces of equipment at play here. So this matches up with the process that has been done in at least 2 previous schools. So just sort of standard practice at this point because of the nature of the equipment. And the contract, the company has provided a contract that Attorney Piers has reviewed. So we're just looking for your approval here. The bid waiver will be reported in a quarterly report to the Board of Finance as per the purchasing policy. So we're all good from that regard.
Just follow up with that a little bit. As said, it is proprietary software. Prior to my time here, we had started going down this road, and front end control systems at Burr are NFC controls, but the back end issues with it now are a translator in between that and the back end controls, which is a system. So to update the back end controls is one price. If we were to actually go with a different company and remove the ALC front end, it would double the price of the cost, which is why we're continuing down the road that we already set forward. That's why we chose it.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? None. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Angeles.
Feel better. Item number 11, Purchasing Authority, Adam Toolin and James Ryan. Here, consider an act on authorizing the Purchasing Authority enter into the proposed service agreement with Schindler Elevator Corporation of Rocky Hill, Connecticut, to perform annual preventative tests and maintenance, as well as routine and emergency repairs as needed on elevators in town buildings for Town of Fairfield RFP 2024-52, elevator maintenance and repairs, and the Schindler elevator proposal dated May 17th, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Adam or James?
Yep. Thank you, Adam Tulin again. We put this out to bid. It's sort of an annual maintenance program that Mr. Ryan is responsible for. We received 3 responses back from pretty big name companies: Coney, Otis, and Schindler. Mr. Ryan completed a review with Schindler Elevator, who was the apparent low bidder on, I believe, every item. And he felt comfortable moving forward, so we've prepared a service agreement, a master service agreement contract here that Attorney Pierce has reviewed. And if you have any questions about the service, James Ryan could help you out with that.
Right.
We did a scope review with Schindler. They were the cheapest by, the lowest by a lot. But again, understood the scope of work, attended the walkthroughs, and no major hurdles. So I don't see it happening with them. I used them in the past at 2 other jobs. I'm familiar with them and their emergency call number and how they respond was always good. So I'm comfortable with this move.
This is like a recurring theme, though, with the spread between. It's really truly remarkable. Is this larger spreads than you've seen in the past? I mean, it seems like every bid, someone is significantly cheaper than the other.
Yeah, lately but we're having people show up. So
yeah,
that's the good part. In some cases, we've had just response.
Right.
So the more responses, the more people that attend those walkthroughs, the more competitive these numbers get.
Awesome. Any comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, did we lose Christine? Okay. To the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you, James. Item number 12, Penfield Pavilion, to hear an update on Penfield Pavilion from Eli. Oh, hey.
Hello.
Good timing.
Thank you. So quick update on Penfield. I'll divide my update into 3 segments. I'll talk about the locker room area. I'll talk about remediation, and I'll talk about what's happening underneath the main building. So just to start with remediation, you're about 80% complete across the entire site. The remaining 20% of the soils that haven't been excavated are because they are underneath the building, the main building, and that's parts sequence 2 and 3. So 20% remaining on the remediation. We did say, I did mention this briefly last meeting, we had a visit from Connecticut Deep. They walked around the site, they inspected all our stockpiles, both clean and dirty. They're very happy. So extend our gratitude to Steve. Underneath the locker room, the contractor has backfilled the entire area back to elevation 8. So remediation underneath that area is completely finished. Underneath the locker room area, there's about 15 helical piles that needed to be installed. Those helical piles are installed. Yep. So so the contractor is beginning to next week to install the building skirting around that area. It's a finished look on it. So that's next week. Underneath the main building, that's where most of the work is happening right now. About 50% of the grade beams underneath the main building have been removed. The locations where grade beams have been removed, the building is on temporary shoring. Everything's been reviewed by multiple structural engineers. helical pile installation underneath the main building will begin tomorrow. So they're the first ones, includes 175 micropiles, helical piles, underneath the main. Shortly after that, the contractor will begin concrete piles, concrete pile caps. And then once the pile caps are dried up, then that's within the next kind of forecasting out. Potential cost overruns that we see right now, we did exceed our 7,000 ton allowance on the remediation. As I said, we are about 8% complete, 8,300 tons, 1,300 tons over. We explained this to, we told Deep what we're going over. They said, it's not a surprise. They've never seen a remediation site end up smaller than what you anticipated. So, and we first started digging underneath it. Tapers out, tapers to less out as you get outside the building. So that's an overrun, potential overrun there. The second thing, which is typical on all construction sites, when you're working with an existing building or existing spaces, you run into some additional areas where unforeseen instances, like additional steel is needed, or there's a condition where we didn't know. Very small items like that. But at this time, we're trying to handle all these costs with contingencies and bonds that we established within the community. Also, on some
the helical piles were custom made, right? So we have them all on site at this point?
Yes. Not all of them, 80% of them come in truckloads. Delivery. So yeah.
And the timing right now, sort of on schedule?
We are on schedule, knock on wood.
Any questions from the board? Christine's back on her phone. I don't know if she can hear us, but Christine, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good. Any questions about Penfield?
Questions. Study Wi-Fi.
Thank you so much for the update. Great to hear that we're on schedule. That's awesome. Well, that's not a voting item. So we're going to move on to item 13. Tax collector to consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $16,137.77. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any comments? Seeing none. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This item is approved. Item number 14, the minutes, to consider and act upon the minutes of June 12th, 2024, June 26th, 2024, July 10th, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, public? None, back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 Item passes. Item number 15, announcements. I would just like to say really quickly how grateful we are to our first responders. On Saturday, we had a very tragic incident, a drowning death. They were on site very, very quickly, and worked diligently for many hours and coordinated and collaborated incredibly well among many different departments with the Coast Guard, and it was very impressive. And I was not on site. I was on vacation for a day, and was receiving like updates, all the time, and I felt like I was really well looped in. I really appreciate that. So, Ms. Kupchak, you have an announcement?
Yeah, I just wanted to request formally at our table. I know during our last meeting, which was heated, when you read the whole list of items, why you thought there wasn't this conflict of interest. And I know that you emailed me asking me, but I didn't have a completed list, and I had to put together things that people sent to me, which took me a little bit of time. So I want to request, formally request that on our next meeting, that we put the issue of appointing a special counsel to independently investigate the conflicts of interest. I do have the list. I know that you read yours into the record. I think it would be important for the public, for transparency, to read. There are major concerns regarding Mr. Becker's influence over bidding and budgeting process for the town of Fairfield. The personnel overseeing the award of contracts directly report to Mr. Becker. The ability and opportunity to influence award of contracts through the bidding process exists in a direct violation of section 11.2, subsection D of the town of Fairfield's charter, which you had read last meeting, that no elected or appointed town officer, employee, or RTM member, or any member of any authority, board, or commission, or committee shall engage in any business transaction or activity or have a financial interest, direct or indirect, which is incompatible with the proper discharge of their official duties, or which may tend to impair the independence or judgment in the performance of the town officers, employees, or members' official duties. So the claims that were shared with me, I tried my best to put everything together. One, under the current organizational chart in the budget book for the town of Fairfield, the chief financial officer, hereafter referred to as CFO, position oversees various departments, including the purchasing department. Two, under the job description for the chief operating officer, a job that Mr. Becker currently holds, a major responsibility of that position is to make recommendations for resolutions of town-wide budgetary and capital expenditures. Mr. Becker, in his capacity as the chief operating officer, has a major influence over the budget and capital expenditures for the town of Fairfield. The purchasing department oversees the bid process, and they report directly to Mr. Becker. The receipt and storage and unsealing of bids for the town of Fairfield are overseen and managed by the purchasing department, which reports directly to the CFO. The receipt, and by way of example, on February 2nd, 2024, the culvert repair project bid was overseen by the purchasing department. More specifically, Lee Flaherty, purchasing agent for the town of Fairfield, received an unsealed bid on March 7th on 2024. The opportunity for influence exists over the entire bid process. Those who are charged with receiving bids have a direct or indirect reporting line to the CFO, or in this case, the interim CFO. This is incompatible with the proper discharge of the interim CFO's official duties and can lead to the impairment of an independence of judgment in the performance of the interim CFO's duties. On January 8th, 2024, Mr. Becker had conversations with the Human Resources Department that he was removing himself from the Becker companies. Mr. Becker did not remove himself as a principal of Becker Landscaping LLC and the Becker Companies LLC for another 60 days. In the intervening 60 days, February 2nd, 2024, culvert repair project public bid request opened online for a public bid submission. As per the Munis system, Mr. Becker began his official role as the interim CFO on February 3rd, 2024 as the CFO. Mr. Becker accepted the position of interim CFO with full knowledge that he had not divested his interests or removed himself as a principal in the Becker Landscaping LLC or the Becker Companies LLC. A letter to the editor was published in the Fairfield Patch on February 26, 2024 by Fairfield resident Evan Snapper, which expressed concerns about Mr. Becker's as the interim CFO, given his affiliation with the Becker Companies. Yet it still took Mr. Becker additional 2 weeks. The bids for the culvert project were officially opened for public submission on February 2nd, 2024, at a meeting that took place at Fairfield Town Hall, March 7th, 2024. On the date of the public bids were open, Mr. Becker was a principal of Becker Landscaping LLC and Becker Companies LLC. Mr. Becker did not divest himself of his interest in said companies for an additional 5 days after the bids for the culvert project were unsealed and the contract was awarded. The bid amounts on the February 2nd, 2024 culvert project remain as follows. Palmieri Farms, $77,000, which included Becker Landscaping as a subcontractor. Southern Industries Corporation, Tarrytown, New York, $165,000, and Nagy Brothers Construction, Monroe, $161,000. Mr. Becker's connection to Becker Landscaping LLC and the Becker Companies LLC. The two companies, Becker Landscaping LLC and Becker Companies LLCs, are all closely held family companies, with all principals and members being Becker family members. Both companies are formally registered to a property located on 2060 Kings Highway, Fairfield, Connecticut, as the principal place of business. 2060 Kings Highway, Fairfield, Connecticut, which is the principal place of the business for both Becker Landscaping LLC and Becker Companies LLC, is owned by 2058 and 2060 Kings Highway LLC. 2058 and 60 Kings Highway LLC is a limited liability company that has 3 principal owners. Number 1, David Becker. Number 2, BB Holdings LLC. Number 3, Michael Becker, David Becker's father. BB Holdings LLC has 3 principal owners. Becker Holdings LLC, Michael Becker, David Becker's father, and Fran Bono Holdings, David Becker's stepmother. Becker Holdings LLC has 2 principal owners. David Becker, Michael Becker, David Becker's father. Therefore, David Becker has a 44% ownership interest in the property located on 2060 Kings Highway, Fairfield, Connecticut, the same property that is registered as a principal place of business for both Becker Landscaping LLC and Becker Companies LLC. The business email address for the SOX filing for Becker Landscaping LLC and the Becker Companies LLC is officially recorded on that site. The same email address is the email address directly connected to the official website for the Becker Companies LLC. The removal of David Becker as principal from the Becker Landscaping LLC and the Becker Companies LLC, filed with the Connecticut Secretary of State's office, was filed by David Becker acting in a capacity who was duly authorized by Becker Landscaping LLC and the Becker Companies LLC to act in that capacity. At the same time, Mr. Becker claimed to have removed himself from the management of said companies. He was filing official documents with the Connecticut Secretary of State as a duly authorized agent for these same companies. The town of Fairfield tax collector records show that in 2021, a Chevrolet Suburban is registered to Becker Landscaping LLC, which upon information and belief is the same vehicle that is driven daily by Mr. Becker to this date. Mr. Becker's alleged claims of divestment are suspect and concerning, given the fact that all the companies noted are closely held private companies and are owned by close family members of Mr. Becker, including his father and stepmother. All the companies involved in the Becker Landscaping and the Becker Companies LLC appear to be interconnected with each other and interconnected directly with David Becker through an intricate and complex mosaic of family limited liability companies. Therefore, the issue regarding potential conflicts of interest as to David Becker in his capacity as interim CFO and Chief Operating Officer for the town of Fairfield needs to be investigated by independent counsel who shall not be affiliated in any way with the town of Fairfield or the current town attorney on behalf of the community and our town. And I will share this, I will send this to you and the town attorney and to Select Woman Vitale as record. I do believe we should put it on our agenda for our next meeting. Listen, I don't take any joy in any of this. I am very, very cognizant of what our community's been through. And I think, you know, when residents bring these to our attention, send this information to us, it is our obligation as elected officials to make sure it is independently investigated on behalf of the community so they know and they can have trust in our government and our processes.
Okay, so you will send what you just read to us, and I will confer with the town attorney. That is your, do that, certainly. And we'll, I don't know about putting it on the next agenda, but I'll confer with the town attorney about timing. But I just want to say something that I feel quite deeply. I feel, you know, we've had quite a lot of, you know, we've had raised voices on this board. We've had people cutting each other off. I'm guilty of it. Ms. Kupchik, you're guilty of cutting me off as well. We're both guilty of cutting Christine Batali off. I am really in favor of moving forward with the business of the town. And part of that, and I feel like my raising of my voice in the last meeting in defense of an employee, I will not raise my voice, but I have to say that I believe a well-functioning board that members don't blindside each other. I feel blindsided. I felt blindsided on July 10th when you brought it up during announcements, and I felt blindsided last week, and I feel blindsided again. And I think we need to figure out a way to communicate with each other when, especially with regard to employees, offline, because when you talk about the difficulties the town has gone through, and the fill pile you mentioned last meeting, and then you mention someone like Mr. Becker in the same breath, you're doing them a great disservice, and you're tainting their reputation. Maybe not on purpose, possibly, but it does in a lot of people's minds form a connection. I think it's important for members to communicate concerns through the administration, through through our assistant, through Jen Carpenter. And, you know, we can always get something on the agenda, but if we're not blindsided at the meeting, if we have time to prepare a response, we could come to the table with a response. So, for example, on July 10th, had your concerns been communicated to me, I would have put that timeline together, which I did spend an awful lot of time on. I would have done that prior to that meeting, and we could have discussed that at the meeting. I spent a lot of time putting that together. In the last meeting, I read through it, and your comments afterwards made me feel like I wasn't really being listened to. So I just think it's not good practice to bring up issues about an employee at a public meeting, and especially in a case like this where, you know, that employee's name, you know, is important, and their families' names are important to them, and you may. I'm not saying that I can say this for sure, but I believe, you know, that there's a very good chance that you don't have a legitimate case in this instance. I think that we will follow up, take your what you say seriously. And I mentioned this last week. I also asked you to respond with details, and I would have expected that again prior to the July 10th meeting when you brought it up during the announcement section of our meeting. And we could have been maybe concluded this by now, but it seemed unfair to bring up an employee's, situation like this in public, especially when it comes to conflicts of interest where an employee from where I sit, has made great sacrifices to divest himself, and great monetary sacrifices. And this is very sensitive for me, and I can tell you why. There was an incident where I and my son found ourselves in the papers on the Connecticut Examiner on the patch, and that came about because there was a period of time in this town where we had not yet approved $10,000, allowing our department heads to sign contracts under $10,000, because our town attorney rightly said, in the town charter, we have to formally delegate that as the Board of Selectmen. And at that period, there was a contract for $9,800 that came across my desk. And I said, whoa, my son works for this company. And so I called up the town attorney and I said, Phil, I've got a bit of a problem. Mark Barnhart likes this company. It's called National Development Council, Grow America. And he knows them well and would like to hire them. But my son, who's 25 years old, you'll never find him anywhere on the website. No one would know that he works there, but he works there. And Mr. Pierce, Attorney Pierce, said, well, first of all, and I said, look, I'll recuse myself, but what do we do? And he said, well, the first thing you should do is go out and get more bids. And so Mark Barnhart went out and got 2 more bids. And because National Development Council is a not-for-profit, they were significantly lower, maybe 30, 40, 50% lower than the next highest bid. So Mark came in and said, okay, they're the lowest bid. Can we move forward? And I said, no. I have to recuse myself and explain why. And we agreed that he was going to call you, Mr. Kupchik, and tell you that my son works for this company. He did. And as is your right, you said you were not comfortable going with a company that was for a $9,800 contract that was significantly below the other bids. You were not comfortable going with a company that my son worked for, and you told him that your husband, who runs the HVAC company, would never bid on a town contract. So I just accepted that, and he wanted to withdraw it from the agenda, even though he was in a time crunch to get the work done that we needed. It was tax consulting to try to get more affordable units into development in the Metro Center. So I said, I will just go to the board and I'll ask for an amendment to go with the second highest bid, because it was your right to say you were not comfortable with it. 40 minutes before the meeting, a man named Michael Grant, who's vice chair of the RTC, wrote a letter and posted it on the patch and then on the Connecticut Examiner, implicating me in corruption of trying to get my son a contract. I don't believe that people truly understand what a conflict of interest means. There is a conflict of interest. There could be a appearance of a conflict of interest, but if the person who feels that and says and goes and talks to the town attorney and says, I have a conflict of interest here, I'm going to recuse myself, there's nowhere that I know of that would say that that's not okay. Yet I think the public believes, and I don't think anyone's explained to the public that that's the way town, municipal governments work. We have attorneys who sit on boards who have to recuse themselves regularly. We've got someone on the Board of Finance who is regularly leaving the room and saying, I'm conflicted. We've got people on other boards who do that. We've got people in the RTM that have done that. And I think we need to explain to the public that a conflict of interest is only a problem if the person doesn't disclose it and doesn't do something about it. So I think we're going to take your letter very seriously. We'll move it forward, and I will talk to the town attorney. We'll get back to you what our recommendations are on how to treat it. But I do think that it is not appropriate to talk about this kind of things in public, because even the ethics commission, when the ethics commission gets something, they do it behind the scenes. They don't drag people publicly through a process. And I don't think we on the Board of Selectmen should do that either. That's just my opinion. And I've said all I need to say on the subject.
Bill, if I could just, respectfully, and listen, I just want you to know that I was not trying to hurt your feelings. Christine, I have to respond to this.
Miss talking.
Yeah, I think Christine Vitale should have a chance to speak before you speak. But Brenda, we do let people speak.
You both and typically in any kind of legislative, if someone's name was mentioned, allowed to.
Yeah, but Christine had her hand.
All I wanted to say to you, Bill, was when Mark Barnhart called me about the contract, which you just talked about with your son, he disclosed to me on the phone that your son was a member of the company. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, but I still would like to use the company. I said, you know what? To protect the first selectman, because I actually believe that we need to be very careful after what our town has been through. I said, could you just tell Bill that I think we should try for another company? Because I don't want this to make him or the office look bad. I don't know why you think I was trying to hurt your family in any way. I just want you to know that was never my intention. You can even ask Mark about it. I specifically said to him, I think Bill needs to protect himself. That's it.
Okay.
And honestly, that's what I was most concerned about. It's the truth, right? And I don't know who wrote a letter or why they wrote a letter. I honestly don't. But
do you know Michael Grant, Vice Chair of the RTC?
I know a lot of people in town, Bill. I know a lot of people, and you know a lot of people too, who have said horrible things about me and most horrifying things. But you made accusations against me at that meeting. And just to be really clear for the public's sake, the information that I shared during that meeting was information was also sent to you. And so if the public is saying to us, hey, we have a little red flag here, we're concerned about something, I think it's appropriate. And I'm sorry that it has someone's name involved in it, but if the community, if our citizens are saying, First Selectman and Brenda, please look into this because we think there's a problem here. I mean, am I supposed to just not say anything about it? Just not bring it up? I mean, I would have expected you to bring it up or maybe do something about it. Listen, I don't know what the end result will be, but I know that these are not my list of concerns. These are lists of concerns that were brought to us by citizens, and that it needs to be reviewed by an independent counsel. And if you had just done that from the very beginning, as opposed to reading this list of an independent investigation you did yourself, I think we wouldn't have any of this. So all I'm saying is, I don't want to cause trouble or drag people's names or talk about all this stuff. If you had just gone and got an independent investigation based on the stuff that people sent us, and it wouldn't have even been discussed. So I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I think we've talked about it enough. I think the board should approve an independent investigation into citizens' concerns about conflicts and the appearance of impropriety, and just leave it at that. And let the independent counsel, if it may be an executive session, comes back and shares that information with us, then that's fine. But I just still think that it should be done on behalf of the community in a transparent way to make sure that we are not violating the charter and that we are responding to citizens' concerns about possible impropriety or alleged conflicts of interest. That's all.
Christine Vitale has her hand raised. Ms. Vitale.
I want to start by saying I also feel blindsided with this information. And you know that my feeling about open board comment, I think that this conversation that we've just had is exactly why I don't think it's appropriate. This is a conversation I'm sure people in the public would like to know about or hear, both the concerns you raised, Ms. Kupchak, and Mr. just your experience with the Michael Grant letter, the work that you've done to explain the conflict of interest, your concerns about rightly sticking up for your staff and protecting their privacy, and respecting the work they do for the town. It wasn't on the agenda. This conversation was had, so the public doesn't even know about it. It's probably going to show up in the paper. It's probably going to get spun. Nobody had a chance to participate or give comment. So in terms of process, really uncomfortable with the way this played out. Again, I think it could have been avoided if that prepared statement that you had, Ms. Kupchak, you had sent it to the first selectman. It was clearly not something that you just came to you as part of an announcement. It was planned, and out of respect for our board, if you had sent it this morning, it could have been added to the agenda and we could have come prepared. I'm kind of struggling for what to say right now because, as I said, I felt a little bit blindsided, and this is not the way it should be. It's not good business. It's just not, it's not good civil discourse.
No, I agree, Christine, but you have to admit, the last meeting, there
you
was
know,
a list about culvert.
listen,
It was a culvert. It said culvert repair project. And then the first selectman talked about Mr. Becker.
I don't want to go back.
It didn't list Mr. Becker at all. So, I mean, there's certain ways there, that wasn't very transparent either.
I don't want to go back to the last meeting.
I mean, everybody has to be transparent,
at that
right?
meeting, I think that I totally appreciate that. And one of the ways of doing that is if you have a concern, is just to let the first selectman know beforehand so it can be properly noticed for the public, so he can be prepared. He can potentially have information. What is a special counsel going to cost? We had an ethics. There's a process for these concerns. So if citizens have concerns like the ones that we've been shared by emails, they can go to the ethics commissions, which they have done. There's already been an investigation done. What was that process? What did it look like? All of this stuff could have been unnoticed. But I don't want to go any further down this because I don't think it's appropriate that we should be discussing something as
right. So the bottom line is I asked for an independent counsel to review this and make a judgment, not just for our board, but for our community. He has asked for this. That's all. And the ethics commission, listen, I don't know what they reviewed. The public doesn't know what they reviewed. It's all very secretive over there. So this has been very public. The public brought this to us, and I think they have a right to have an investigation into somebody with a high-ranking position in our town government and be explained to that they don't review all the information independently, and then we and the public can feel much better after that. That's all.
May I just say something quickly?
Yes.
So I just want to point out to you, Ms. Kupchak, I've been criticized by you and by other people for cutting you off, and I just want to highlight the fact that you are quite guilty of that often, and you just cut off Ms. Vitale, and I think we need to establish order, and I've been guilty of it as well. So we need to establish order at these meetings. These meetings really should go by Robert's rules, especially at a time if we're not getting along great, we should use Robert's rules to make sure that there's order. People should raise their hands and be recognized. Ms. Vitale raised her hand and I recognized her. We need to start working in an orderly way so that the town gets more comfortable with our ability to govern. So if we can agree to that, that would be, I think that would be a great first step. The second thing is, I just want to be clear. I get complaints about you, Ms. Kupchak, as well, accusations, and I don't bring them to the board. So, and the reason is for many of them, I make my own judgment as to, based on my knowledge of the law and the work that I do, that I don't think that it's something the public outcry doesn't mean that it's worthy of discussion at the board. The public doesn't really understand what conflicts of interest are and how they're to be treated. And like I said, we have conflicts of interest as fundamentally within a municipal government, a town of 62,000 people. If you're going to serve on a board, you're likely to find yourself in a position at some point where you may be in a conflict of interest, and then you make it known what the conflict is, and you recuse yourself, and then we make sure you're walled off from any involvement in that. I don't think the public understands that second piece of it. So it's up to us to educate them, because I've gotten so many emails about there's an appearance of a conflict of interest, so you should, fire him, or you should do this or that. Like, that's just not practical. It's not the way it works. And I think you know that, but some of the people who have agreed with you don't. And that is why I just don't think it's appropriate to bring these things up until they're investigated. And, we'll investigate, this further if you'd like to, but, and we will, because you do want to. You've made yourself clear in a public forum. We could have done this and not really talked about it in public. I think it would have been fair to do it another way. That's just my opinion. You certainly have your rights as a board member. Can we move on? Okay, any other announcements? Okay, seeing none. Number 16, is this you, Chief? No. Human Resources Director and Chief Operating Officer, executive session. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yeah, the next, we're going to go into executive session to discuss the Fairfield County Regional Dispatch Center Director Employment Agreement with the Town Attorney Philip Pierce, Human Resources Director Kathleen Simpson, Police Chief Robert Calamaris, and Chief Operating Officer David Becker, and possible action to approve the agreement after executive session. May I have a motion to? Thank you. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are going to go into executive session, and I'm not sure we have someone. Anyone watch the 1500 finals last night? Oh my God, it was amazing. Men's.
I'll watch it tonight.
And also the woman from Harvard in the 200. Unbelievable. We are back on. Make a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 We are out of executive session. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for the Fairfield County Regional Dispatch Center Director Employment Agreement. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in, did I miss anything, Phil? Am I doing this right? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that is,
The recording's paused. I think you actually.
oh. Jeff, are you there?
I think he's on his way up.
I don't have Jeff's number, do you?
No.
Do I have to do something?
No,
No,
he's,
just wait until they.
He said he's still alive. It's all
okay,
good.
it's all
It's in
good.
the chat.
Good.
Oh, we're good. Okay, fantastic. You wanna make a motion to adjourn? No, we've got one more. We've got one more. Brenda, did you wanna say something?
No, we have to go back into executive session.
So, thank you, Chief. Okay, good. Talk to you later. To make a motion to, go into executive session, with Town Attorney Phil Pierce, Attorney Andrew Glass, to discuss pending claim Brian D. Griffin versus William J. Powers, FBT-CV 21-6105164-S. Possible action to approve a settlement after executive session, and Town of Fairfield versus heirs of beneficiaries of the estate of Frank R. Barry et al. Possible action to approve a stipulated judgment after executive session. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we are going into executive session. You know how to do this?
Don't know.
Let's see. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session.
Bill, he wrote the FairTV person.
Okay, motion to come out of executive session. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are out of executive session. I'd like to make a motion to approve the pending resolution of the pending claim, Brian D. Griffin versus William J. Powers, FBT-CB21-6105164-S, to approve the settlement and motion, and to approve at the same time Town of Fairfield v. heirs of beneficiary of the estate of Frank R. Barry et al. To approve the stipulated judgment. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we are approved. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. Just in time for the next meeting.